Beloved, before you continue scrolling, before your mind rushes ahead to the next task, the next worry, the next attempt to solve what has refused to be solved, pause for a moment and listen. Archangel Michael is drawing near to the silence you have been carrying. Not the silence around you, but the one within you. The silence that settled into your chest after unanswered questions. The silence that followed disappointments you never fully spoke about. The silence that remained when you smiled for others while quietly wondering how much longer you could keep carrying everything alone. Something is shifting even now. Can you feel it? Not as noise. Not as spectacle. Not as thunder from the heavens. It arrives more gently than that. Like a breath moving across still water. Like the first pale light that enters a room before morning has fully awakened. Like a door inside your spirit slowly opening after being closed for so long that you forgot it was there. The air around your life is not the same as it was. The weight you have been carrying has not disappeared, yet something within it has begun to change. Memories are surfacing differently. Certain worries no longer grip you with the same force. Questions that once demanded immediate answers now linger quietly at the edge of your awareness. You may not understand why. You may not even trust it yet. But your soul has noticed. Dear heart, you have been seen. The exhaustion you rarely speak about has been seen. The private fear about provision has been seen. The nights when you calculated responsibilities in your mind long after everyone else had fallen asleep have been seen. The moments when you wondered whether you were falling behind while everyone else seemed to move forward have been seen. Even the prayers you could no longer find words for have not been lost. Nothing about your journey has gone unnoticed. And if this message finds you at exactly the right moment, know that the link waiting in the pinned comment below is there as an invitation. Your support, no matter the size, becomes a seed of light that helps these messages continue reaching the hearts that need them most, and kindness released into the world has a way of returning in forms the mind cannot always predict. Now listen carefully. There is something you have misunderstood about this season. You believed the closed door was rejection. You believed the delay meant absence. You believed the silence meant no answer was coming. But what if the silence itself was the answer? What if there were paths you were never meant to walk, burdens you were never meant to inherit, and wounds you were quietly being guided away from? What if what felt like stagnation was actually protection moving so gently that only your soul could recognize it? Archangel Michael stands at the threshold of that realization now. For there is one memory, one moment, one seemingly ordinary event from this past season that carries a meaning you have not yet uncovered. And when that meaning begins to reveal itself, everything you thought was lost may suddenly appear in a completely different light. Beloved, as you remain here, notice how different the silence feels now. Not because your circumstances have suddenly changed, but because something beneath them is stirring. The room may be the same. The responsibilities may still be waiting. The unanswered questions may still stand like closed doors along a familiar hallway. Yet the atmosphere around your spirit is no longer exactly what it was. Archangel Michael draws your attention to the spaces between things. The pauses between conversations. The moments just before sleep. The brief stillness that appears after a wave of anxiety has passed. There are messages hidden there, not in words but in impressions. In gentle shifts of awareness. In the strange feeling that something is being rearranged beyond your sight. Have you noticed how certain memories have begun returning recently? Not with the same pain they once carried, but with a different texture. A different light. A conversation from years ago. A decision you questioned. A path you almost took. It is as though the veil surrounding those memories has become thinner. This is not happening by accident. Time itself can become a messenger. What once felt finished sometimes returns because its meaning was incomplete. What once felt confusing sometimes revisits the heart because understanding is finally ready to arrive. Stay here with this message a little longer. There are seasons when heaven speaks loudly, and there are seasons when heaven speaks through atmosphere. You are entering the second kind. The air around your life is becoming charged with subtle knowing. You may find yourself pausing before making choices. You may feel less urgency to force answers. You may even sense a quiet resistance when you move towards something that once seemed necessary. Do not dismiss these things. The sword of Archangel Michael is not only a weapon of protection, it is also a blade of discernment. It separates fear from wisdom, pressure from purpose, noise from truth. And somewhere within the stillness now surrounding you, a forgotten thread is beginning to glow again. Soon you will understand why certain memories have refused to disappear. Dear heart, now the message becomes more personal. There is a weariness inside you that few people truly see. Others may recognize your responsibilities, but they do not always see the hidden cost of carrying them. They do not hear the conversations you have with yourself in the quiet hours. They do not know how often you have questioned your own strength while continuing to move forward anyway. You have become skilled at functioning while tired, skilled at smiling while uncertain, skilled at carrying concerns that never leave your mind for very long. Perhaps you worry about people who depend on you. Perhaps you carry concerns about provision that you rarely speak aloud. Perhaps there is a loneliness that exists even when surrounded by others. Not because people are absent, but because few understand the depth of what you have been navigating internally. Archangel Michael sees all of it. The exhaustion you tried to explain but could not find words for. The disappointment you told yourself to move beyond. The grief attached to things that did not happen, doors that never opened, dreams that quietly faded without ceremony. These things leave marks upon the soul. Yet there is something remarkable about you, beloved. Despite the weight, you have not completely closed your heart. Despite the waiting, some part of you continues listening. Despite the confusion, you are still searching for light. That is why this message finds you now. If this is touching something real in you, share it in the comments. Not because you need to prove anything, but because naming a burden often weakens its hold. What remains hidden tends to grow heavier. What is acknowledged begins to breathe. Archangel Michael is not drawing near because you have failed. He is drawing near because you have been carrying more than you were meant to carry alone. The silence was never measuring your worth. The waiting was never punishment. And the part of you that feared being forgotten has been seen every step of the way. Yet there is one burden among all the others that has shaped this season more than you realize. And soon that hidden weight will finally be brought into the light. Chosen soul, there have been moments when you doubted yourself because of what you felt. Moments when a sudden sense of peace arrived for no obvious reason. Moments when something inside urged you not to proceed, even when logic argued otherwise. Moments when certain numbers, memories, dreams, names, places, or themes appeared repeatedly, not loudly enough to convince you, yet not quietly enough to ignore. You wondered if you were imagining it. You questioned your own perception. You tried to explain away the feeling and continue as if nothing had happened. But Archangel Michael asked you to consider something gently. What if your spirit noticed what your conscious mind could not yet understand? Not every sign arrives wrapped in certainty. Not every answer arrives as a dramatic revelation. Sometimes guidance appears as an unexplainable pause. Sometimes protection appears as a delay. Sometimes wisdom arrives disguised as restlessness whenever you move toward the wrong door. The human mind often seeks clarity through evidence. The soul often receives clarity through resonance. Remain with me. The message is still unfolding. Think back to the moments that made little sense at the time. The opportunities that dissolved unexpectedly. The relationships that shifted despite your efforts. The plans that stalled even when everything seemed prepared. What if those moments were not evidence that you were lost? What if they were evidence that another hand was quietly guiding the direction of your steps? Archangel Michael does not ask you to abandon discernment. He asks you to honor what your spirit has already been sensing beneath the surface. The strange peace. The repeated themes. The inner hesitation. The sudden knowing that arrived without explanation. These things deserve attention. For the silence surrounding you has not been empty. It has been carrying signals, whispers, invitations, and protections that your soul has been collecting piece by piece. And among those collected fragments lies a truth so close now that you can almost feel its warmth. What once looked like delay is preparing to reveal its deeper name. Beloved, the truth that has been circling around the edges of your awareness is ready to step forward. For so long, you have looked at this season through the eyes of loss, through the eyes of delay, through the eyes of uncertainty. And because of that, certain events appeared disconnected, like scattered pieces of a puzzle that refused to form a picture. But Archangel Michael invites you to look again. There is a hidden layer beneath what happened. Not everything that left your life was taken from you. Not everything that failed was meant to succeed. Not every door that remained closed was an opportunity being withheld. Some doors were mercies disguised as disappointments. Some delays were shelters disguised as detours. Some unanswered prayers were protecting you from becoming attached to outcomes that could never carry the peace you were truly seeking. You have spent much energy asking why something did not happen. Yet the deeper question is this: who would you have become if it had? Would you have continued ignoring your exhaustion? Would you have kept carrying responsibilities that were slowly draining your spirit? Would you have built your future upon foundations already beginning to crack beneath the surface? Archangel Michael shows you now that protection often works quietly. It does not always announce itself. It does not always explain its reasons. Sometimes it simply redirects your path and allows understanding to arrive much later. And perhaps that is why certain memories keep returning. Not because you are meant to relive them, not because you are trapped inside them, but because their meaning is changing. A season you called failure may soon be recognized as preservation. A chapter you labeled abandonment may soon be understood as guidance. If your spirit recognizes this, stay connected for what follows. For there is one piece of this story still hidden from view. One thread connecting the burdens you carried, the waiting you endured, and the silence you feared. And when that thread becomes visible, what felt like loss may begin to reveal itself as something entirely different. Dear heart, every burden has a story. Every exhaustion has a source. And beneath much of what you have been carrying stands the presence of another human soul. Not necessarily someone who harmed you. Not necessarily someone who betrayed you. The deeper truth is often more complicated than that. There are people we love whose struggles quietly become our struggles. There are responsibilities we accept because we care. There are relationships where we become the strong one for so long that we forget what it feels like to rest. Archangel Michael gently shines light upon these places. Perhaps there is someone whose approval you have been unconsciously seeking. Perhaps there is a family burden that has followed you for years. Perhaps there is a relationship that taught you to carry more than your share of emotional weight. Perhaps there is someone you continue worrying about long after they have stopped worrying about themselves. The burden does not always arrive through conflict. Sometimes it arrives through love. Sometimes it arrives through loyalty. Sometimes it arrives through a beautiful heart that never learned where healthy boundaries belong. And because you care deeply, you have often mistaken carrying everything for being faithful. But beloved, there is a difference. You can love someone without carrying their entire future. You can care without becoming consumed. You can support without sacrificing your own peace. Archangel Michael is not asking you to harden your heart. He is asking you to release what was never assigned to your shoulders. The sword of discernment is being placed gently into your hands now. Not to cut people out of your life, but to separate what belongs to you from what does not. For years, these things may have felt inseparable. Now they are beginning to untangle. And hidden within that untangling is a freedom you have not felt in a very long time. Soon you will see why one particular burden became the center of this entire season. Chosen soul, now comes the invitation. Not an instruction born from pressure. Not another task to add to your already crowded mind. A sacred invitation. Archangel Michael asks you to stop wrestling with every unanswered question. For a moment, stop demanding certainty from the future. Stop trying to solve every possibility before it arrives. Stop carrying tomorrow before today has even finished speaking. Your spirit has become tired from living several chapters ahead of where your feet currently stand. Return to this moment. Return to your breath. Return to the quiet place where truth can be heard without fear shouting over it. There is something powerful that happens when you stop chasing answers long enough to listen. Not listen for dramatic revelations. Not listen for guarantees. Simply listen. Listen to what creates peace. Listen to what consistently drains it. Listen to what feels aligned with love rather than fear. Listen to the gentle wisdom already growing within you. Remain with me. The message is still unfolding. Perhaps Archangel Michael is asking you to write down the burdens you have carried in secret. Perhaps he is inviting you to release one responsibility that never truly belonged to you. Perhaps he is encouraging you to stop revisiting a closed door whose purpose has already been fulfilled. The instruction will not look identical for everyone, but the essence remains the same. Lay down what fear keeps asking you to carry. Trust what peace keeps asking you to notice. For the soul cannot receive new strength while clutching every old weight. Something is being cleared within you. Space is being created. And what enters that space next will help explain why this message could not have arrived any earlier. Beloved, can you feel it now? Not as excitement. Not as certainty about every detail ahead. Not as the sudden disappearance of every challenge. It is something quieter than that. Something deeper. Like the first warmth returning to frozen ground. Like dawn touching a horizon that spent a long time beneath the night. Like a flame that never truly went out, only waited beneath the ashes until the moment it could breathe again. This is the awakening Archangel Michael has been preparing you for. You once believed strength meant never feeling afraid. Now you are discovering that true strength is remaining present even when answers have not fully arrived. You once believed clarity would come from controlling every outcome. Now you are discovering that clarity often arrives through trust. You once believed peace would come after every burden disappeared. Now you are beginning to understand that peace can stand beside uncertainty and remain unmoved. Look at how far you have already come. There were moments when you thought exhaustion would consume you. Moments when financial pressure felt heavier than your ability to carry it. Moments when loneliness whispered that nobody truly understood. Moments when waiting felt endless. Yet here you are. Still standing. Still listening. Still capable of hope. Archangel Michael is not awakening dependence within you. He is awakening remembrance. The remembrance of who you are beneath the fear. The remembrance of the courage that survived every difficult season. The remembrance of the wisdom that has been growing quietly through every unanswered question. If this message has been speaking directly to your spirit, share that feeling in the comments. Not because validation is needed, but because recognition creates connection, and many hearts are walking through similar valleys without realizing they are not alone. Dear heart, the sword of discernment now rests where confusion once ruled. The wings of protection now cover places where fear once lingered. And the silence that once frightened you is becoming familiar, because you finally recognize the voice hidden within it. The next step is not arriving from outside of you. It is emerging from a place that has been awakening all along. And what is about to be sealed within your heart will change how you remember this entire journey. Chosen soul, we have arrived at the place where the message becomes still. Not because the guidance has ended, but because it has reached a place where words can carry it no further. Archangel Michael stands beside the threshold you have been approaching throughout this journey. Look behind you for a moment. Look at the roads you survived. Look at the doors that closed. Look at the seasons that stretched longer than you thought you could endure. Look at the burdens you carried through days when strength felt scarce. None of it was meaningless. Not the waiting. Not the confusion. Not the silence. Not even the moments when you believed you had been forgotten. There were unseen hands preserving what your eyes could not yet understand. There were quiet mercies hidden inside delays. There were protections concealed within disappointments. And there was wisdom growing inside every season that appeared empty. The silence was never empty. It was full. Full of preparation. Full of discernment. Full of invitations to become someone stronger, gentler, wiser, and more deeply anchored than before. Beloved, release the need to fight the season that shaped you. Release the need to accuse yourself for not having all the answers sooner. Release the belief that you were abandoned when heaven seemed quiet. You were being guided in a language your soul understood long before your mind could translate it. Now let peace settle where fear once lived. Let trust settle where urgency once ruled. Let hope settle where exhaustion once made its home. And as the wings of Archangel Michael stretch across this moment, receive this final blessing. May your heart recognize the guidance that has always surrounded you. May your spirit rest in the protection you could not always see. May your path unfold with wisdom rather than haste. And may you never again mistake sacred silence for absence. For this is the seal upon the message. The silence you carried was not the absence of guidance. It was the sacred path through which your soul learned how to hear. And from this moment forward, the silence around you will never sound the same again.